So please, we will not have any break, and all the presenters are ready, as well as the chair. I have checked. So let's go, Mr. Pascal, to the next session.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amin. So this concludes our second technical session, and we're moving on to our third and final technical session of day one of our conference. Our speakers are Doctors Yumnam, Tamiru, Vijaya, and Smita John. I'm told they are on standby. And in chair is Dr. Morsal Shaif Muhammad Haidara from the Sheba Region University of Yemen. To introduce the chair, Dr. Haidara, I invite Dr. Amin once again. Dr. Amin.
Thank you, my dear friend. Please, Professor Morsal Haidara, could you please unmute yourself? And all the four paper presenters, they should be ready. Dr. Morsal. Could you please unmute yourself, sir? You are available online. You can hit the icon which looks like the mic down there in the window at the left side. There is an icon looks like the mic. You can just unmute yourself. Turn it on. Dr. Morsal? I think everybody can hear me, right? Anyone of the audience can confirm? You can hear me?
Yes, Dr. Amin, you are loud and clear. Loud and clear.
Yeah, so that means I have to give him a phone call as a kind of an alert. Hello, Dr. Morsal. It is your time now to chair the session. Dr. Morsal Haidara. It looks like that Dr. Morsal, he was online, but now it appears that he's offline. So we will give one more minute. Otherwise, we will have Professor Shanabas as a chair of the session. So in order to let's invest our time, and I would like to invite Professor Shanavas to chair the session, and we can do a substitution in which Dr. Mursal can chair the session of tomorrow instead of Professor Shanavas. So I would like to invite Professor Shanavas, please, to chair the session. All the presenters are available.
Thank you, Mr. Amin. This is our third session, technical session. We have four papers. The speakers are Ms. Rosie Yumnan, Zubairi Tamiru, from Ethiopia. Zubairi Tamiru from Ethiopia. Vijaya from Annamalai University, Tamil Nadu. Smita John from Patambi, Palakkad. And I invite Rosie Yumnan from Hyderabad, Meghalaya, to present her paper, The Use of Folk Tales in Teaching English as a Second Language. Ms. Rosie Yumnan.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Yes. Is my slide visible, sir?
Yes. Clear. Carry on.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Rosie Yumnam from the English and Foreign Languages University, Shillong, India. It's indeed a privilege to be presenting my paper here in this virtual conference. Thank you, esteemed chair and organizers. Well, the title of my paper today is The Use of Folk Tales in Teaching English as a Second Language. I will begin my presentation. Well, in this session, I'll be deliberating on the following points, which I have put up in the slide. The first point is to define a folk tale. Second, why do we use folk tales in ELT? And how do we bring folk tales in the classroom? So, to come to the first point, I'm going to discuss on something which we all have grown up listening to, the folk tales. As we all know, folk tales are stories passed down through generations, mainly orally. Abrams defined folk tale as a short narrative in prose, anonymously written, that has been transmitted orally. Folk tales are characterized by fictitious events and characters, and a certain extent of suspension of disbelief is required by the audience to conceive it. They are also rich in various features of literary creativity. As a form of common folklore, folk tales sugarcoat the heartless lessons of life so as to give listeners or readers guidance about how they should behave. In this way, folk tales help pass values and beliefs, traditions, and culture across generations. So some examples of folk tales are fairy tales, myths, legends, fables, tall tales, trickster tales, and so on and so forth. So where do we find these folk tales or the stories? We get it within the community, from the internet, from print sources like picture books, magazines, or periodicals, or also from traveling. Now, Why do we use folktales? We use folktales in ELT. Well, I have emphasized 5 points for using folktales in ELT. They are, it is put up in the slide there. The first one is use of language forms. Second, culture. Third, imagination and creativity. Fourth, vocabulary. And the fifth point is to enhance the language skills. As observed by Mabin and peers, literary creativity defined at the level of language involves manipulation and use of the various linguistic form of the text. This may include the use of various sounds, words, or phrases. According to Mackay, one of the most significant contributions of using literature for the purpose of language teaching is that literature contains language manifested in discourse, which describes the specific use of language forms. She also observes the other advantages like the promotion of cultural tolerance, enhancement of reading proficiency, and also improving creativity for the students in the language classroom. So, in view of these observations, it can be argued that the folk tales, which can be either written or verbal, can be employed in English language classrooms to teach grammar and vocabulary in context, to incorporate language, culture, and content, and to enhance communicative skills. My next point is, how do we bring folk tales in the classroom? So, the distinctive universality of the basic structure in folk tales from various cultures make these tales a very important source for language learning. The simple languages used in folk tales make it easier for the learners to cognitively comprehend and relate it to their daily lives. Relatedly, the universal themes of kindness, honesty, jealousy, greed, and narrative structures with the storyline of reward or punishment in the folk tales can encourage the learners to listen or read with confidence. This enables the learner to understand the specific use of grammatical patterns and vocabulary used in the folk tales and how they can relate to them. So to illustrate this point, I have explored the folk narratives of Meghalaya and Manipur. Meghalaya and Manipur are two states in the northeastern part of India, and they are explored to teach English language. So the first point I have divided into 6 points here. The first point is folk tales make learning fun. So for this, I have used a folk song of Manipur, Hisan Hirao. Hisan Hirao is a narrative poem sung on the concluding day of Lai Harawa festival of Manipur. It narrates the touching story of the mourning of a tree parent for their treasured son. So, in the classroom, after discussing the poem, various tasks can be assigned to teach language skills with fun. The task 1, performance in the classroom. So divide the class into 2 groups. Ask one group to find out one of the songs which is sung on Lai Harawa festival and perform in the class. For the other group, ask them to find out one form of dance of the Lai Harawa festival, and the same should be asked to perform in the class. So they can be further asked to comment on their performances. So this task is aimed to teach listening and speaking skills with fun. So the second task is to find information. The students are divided into groups of 3. Each group is provided with objects or pictures like shawls, figurines, jewelries, handicrafts, paintings pertaining to the culture and the mythologies of Manipur. Ask the students to find information about the objects provided to them by a form of research or investigation. They can be asked to discuss about their research in the class, which will enhance their speaking and listening skills. So based on this listening ability, the students are asked to write a short summary on each of the objects and present in the class. So these are aimed to teach the language skills of listening, speaking, and writing. So thus the learners enjoy the activities as they learn the language skills. So the second point is folk tales provide rich vocabulary. For this, I have taken 2 folk tales from Meghalaya. The first one is What Makes the Eclipse. This folk tale describes the fight between the sun goddess Kasningi and the giant toad Hinro and how their fight causes the eclipse. So after the folk tale is read in the class, we can take up vocabularies like seclusion, terrified, distress, enchantment, etc. And then the students are asked to guess the meaning from the context and use it in their own sentences. And from the second folk tale, Manik Raitong. Manik Raitong is a folk tale of Meghalaya, which describes the legend of Manik Raitong, the classic lover and the dispenser of the tradition of love and music in Khasi society. Khasi people are an indigenous ethnic group of Meghalaya. So after reading the text in the class, we can use words like orphan, tradition, obscure, tremendous from the story. We can write these words on pieces of card, tell the student to come up and pick a card and describe what it means to the rest of the class. This exercise can be repeated. With the vocabulary they have learned, they can be asked to use in their own sentences. So this is about learning vocabulary. And the next point is folktales are a good source of cultural information. For this, I have used the folk song, which I have used earlier, Hizen Hirao. In this folk song, the cultural traditions are reflected in its myth narrations where the boat of the king called Hyang Hiren is described. The myth surrounding the Sangai. Sangai is a grow-and-fed deer which is found only in the Taibul Namjau National Park of Manipur in India, and the human head which adorns the head and tail of the king's boat. Hyang Hiren is the source of Manipur's history, literature, and culture. So these cultural traditions can be highlighted and discussed in the class. At the same time, language skills of listening, speaking, reading, and writing can also be taught in the class. So my fourth point is folktales provide moral or life lesson. So for this, I have used a folktale of Manipur, China Roll. In this text, a combat takes place to settle a conflict. The real winner of the combat was Moiremba, a character in the story, but Athoba, another character, cheated and won the combat. As Athoba had won the combat by dishonest means, his inner mental conflict consumed him to death. So the real life values embedded in the narrative is the triumph of righteousness. So using this narrative, moral lessons as well as language skills can be taught in the class. Now, coming to the fifth point, folktales to teach various forms of discourse. For this, I have again used the folktale of Meghalaya, U Manik Raitong. The conversation which is given in the first point in the slide, this is a conversation between the lovers, U Manik Raitong and Ka Ling Macau, two characters from the folktale, when they first met and fell in love. Manik shouted after her, "Will I see you again? If you want to see me, come to my house tomorrow," the girl shouted back. "Ask for the house of the Linskor." So from this dialogue, direct and indirect speech can be taught in the class. The students can be further asked to write their own dialogues on any topic of their choice and present in the class. And then the next folk song over there, which I have used earlier, as Hizen Hirao is a narrative poem sung on the concluding day of Lai Harawa Festival of Manipur, we can use it to teach the narrative discourse. So after the narrative techniques have been discussed in the class, after the narrative techniques have been discussed in the class, the students can be asked to convert this extract, which is this narrative discourse, into dialogue discourse, and it can be discussed in the class. So the last point is folktales help learners to develop the use of figurative language. Well, for this, I have used again the folktale, What Makes the Eclipse. So in this folktale, the young girl said, climbed into the magic tree and spoke the magic words. This is from the first point there in the slide. Magic words taught to her by the mouse. She says, "Grow tall, dear tree. The sky is near, expand and grow." Upon which the tree began to expand. So the use of personification in these lines can be highlighted. And then the other one, the folk song of Manipur again, Hizen Hirao. Here, the tree parents' last encounter with their loving tree son at dawn is heartbreaking. So, and it is described as follows. Grieving parents have the last look at him and return back as the sun dawns upon earth. So these lines can be used to teach English language. Based on understanding of this analysis, the students can be guided to create their own sentences using personification. These sentences can be then asked to share in the class. The use of figurative language can also be encouraged. In another activity, the students can be asked to write a short story based on the poem Hizen Hirao by incorporating the cultural elements and the literary devices drawn from the poem. This short story can be asked to read, discuss, and critically analyze in the class. And in another activity, the students can be asked to write a play based on the folktale, What Makes the Eclipse. This play can be asked to perform in the class. In this way, the students' speaking skills and vocabulary can be enhanced. Also, the use of figurative language can be introduced. So, to conclude, So we see that the folktales are a valuable source of teaching English as a second language. They provide authentic, meaningful, and rich content which assists in enhancing language learning as well as to understand culture, values, and the ways of life. So in the classroom practices which I have deliberated, it can be said that the folktales of Meghalaya and Manipur used in the study with its pedagogical implications can be effectively used in language classrooms. In the process, the learners can also develop cultural awareness and values reminiscent throughout the folktales. Folktales give the flexibility of creating a variety of engaging activities to cater to different learning styles. Folktales also foster learners' imagination and creativity, which greatly enhances the process of learning English as a second language. However, teaching of English as second language has its own objective. Folktales often require certain modification to use it in a language classroom so that they suit the objectives of specific lessons to augment the emotional, cognitive, and language growth of the learners. So that's all. I would like to thank everyone. Thank you, respected chair, and the organizers and all the participants.
Thank you, Rosie.
Thank you, sir.
Now I request Dr. Marasal Hydra to continue the session because he is online now. Dr. Marasal.
Well, Dr. Mursal is back again. Could you please unmute yourself, sir? You can unmute yourself, sir. Dr. Mursal. There are three icons, one for camera, one for closing the session, and the other one for the mic. You can turn it on, please. It is down there in the screen, down at the left side. Dr. Mursal Haidara, please unmute yourself. Well, Dr. Mursal, he contacted me and he is already sharing the session. So please, the next presenter should go on. Zwadi Amiro from Ethiopia. Yes, my dear, you can start your presentation, and Dr. Mursal is chairing, and he will manage the issue of the sound. Okay, you can hit home, then it will take you to the first slide. Okay. Now, yeah, make it full.
Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm trying to share my PowerPoint.
Yeah, maximize it, please. And you have many slides, so we need only the gist, the main ideas. Okay. Make it larger, please. Full screen.
Okay. Full screen.
Either to hit F5, then it will become full. Okay, you can go on, please. And
okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Odi from Ethiopia. I would like to present my paper entitled Effects of Differentiated Instruction on EFL Students' Reading Fluency, Comprehension, and Attitude towards Reading. As you can see from the slide, it's better if I put it in a paper, in a picture form. So what is differentiated instruction is that students in the classroom, students come to the classroom with different language proficiencies, with different readiness, with different intelligence, with different motivation and attitude towards the subjects they learn, and so many other differences. So in order to accommodate the needs of these diversified needs of students, we need a responsive instruction, which Tomlinson calls differentiated instruction. So differentiated, in short, is about responsive teaching, or it can be called a teaching philosophy that teachers can follow to accommodate the diversified needs of the students in order to give fair and equal opportunity for everyone. So if differentiated instruction is about teaching students differently according to their interests, their learning profiles, how are their students different? They are different based on their readiness, their intelligence, their interests, their learning profile, which incorporates their intelligence, their learning style, gender, culture. Students are different. They have different interests, different readiness or preparedness towards the subjects they learn. They have different backgrounds. So if students are different in different ways, we need to adjust 4 critical elements. The first one is the content, what we teach. As a teacher, we need to adapt a kind of instruction that fits to the students so that the content can be simplified, it can be eliminated, or it could be added so that there would be kind of combating the curriculum. And the process, the way we teach our students, how we want students to teach in the classroom can be differentiated based on their learning style, their intelligence, and so on. And the product, how we want students to demonstrate what they have understood, should also be differentiated. And the learning environment should be, the environment, the classroom environment should be something that invites the kids to the table of learning rather than away from learning. So a classroom environment should promote and value differences, students' differences. So there are 2 critical things about non-negotiables of DI. One is respectful tasks. This is to mean that by differentiated instruction, it doesn't mean that we need to give different activities for or unrelated activities for students. No, the activity should be related, integrated, challenging, and manageable, so that they have the right to take kind of respectful tasks, to engage in respectful tasks that are appealing, interesting, and engaging for all the students. It should not be, it doesn't mean that DI doesn't mean that we need to give a little for slow learners and many for advanced learners. That's not the sense. They have the chance to get the best of the curriculum. The essence of the curriculum should be given for all students. And the other is ongoing assessments in order to differentiate students, in order to know who is ahead of me, who is average, who is slow behind me. We need to assess them where they are first. So assessment of learning, assessment for learning, assessment as learning is highly practiced, especially assessment for learning, which is ongoing or formative assessment, which, just like a compass that lets us know where to go. It's very essential to design the next lessons in a way that fits to that responds to the needs of the diversified needs of students, so that ongoing assessment or self-reflection, assessment as learning, a teacher as well as the students should be given time to reflect on how they learned, how they felt about the lessons. So what is really the problem? What was the problem that instigated me to work on differentiated instruction is reading, because the title is differentiated instruction in reading. Globally as well as locally, research indicates that, for example, the National Assessment Education Report 2003 indicates that 44% of US fourth graders scored below average in their reading fluency, and this also had an impact on their reading comprehension, because they also failed to read fluently, failed to comprehend the text. They focus on decoding. And when it comes to the Ethiopian situation, USAID or EGROS report 2011 and so on indicated that 37 from among 90,800 participants in 11 regions of Ethiopia, 37% of Ethiopian English grade 4 students scored below grade 2 level, and 17 at grade 3, 17 at grade 2, and about 30%, only 30% actually achieved the expected standard, grade 4 and above. So this indicates that we need to think about a better way of, or an alternative means of engaging students in the classroom. So an alternative, I feel that there should be a kind of differentiated instruction, because from my preliminary study, I understood that teachers' method of teaching didn't fit with the students' teaching styles actually. And so it was one size fits all instruction, but in reality, we don't have uniform students, that we give uniform kind of teaching, uniform kind of assessment. So I feel that DI, or differentiated instruction, can help students to understand and to read and to minimize the reading problems. So having this thing in mind, I developed three research questions. One, is there a significant difference between students reading fluency scores before and after learning following the principles of PI? What about their reading comprehension? And what effect does differentiated instruction have on students' attitude towards reading? And the conceptual framework, I put the concepts which were incorporated in this study like this. So differentiated instruction as an umbrella term which incorporates the 4 dimensions: the content, the process, the product, and the environment. And the process incorporates, I chose 4 teaching strategies, flexible grouping, small group reading instruction, tiered activities, and scaffolding. So how are how is this differentiated instruction related to reading, fluency, comprehension, and attitude was actually the conceptual framework. And the methodology, I used quasi-experimental pre-test, post-test control groups, which was mixed in its nature. And the participants were grade 4 English students and their teacher. I chose the primary school and grade 4 purposely, and the primary school in Bahadar, Yogasvana Primary School randomly. And the instruments, I used questionnaire, tests, and reflections in order to get pertinent data. And both the tests and the questionnaire, they were actually piloted at Maskaram 16 Primary School in here in Bahadar. And the Chromebook fallible reliability was 0.8, which is actually very good, reliable. And the data analysis, after collecting the data was analyzed. Data were analyzed both quantitatively using analysis of covariance, one-way analysis of covariance and paired sample t-test. And the other is I used qualitatively the reflection part, particularly students' logs and teachers' logs were analyzed using thematic analysis. So what was the research procedure looks like? I began with providing pre-tests for both groups, experimental and control, and then questionnaire was given for experimental group only, because the purpose was to know their attitude towards reading before intervention. And again, multiple intelligence inventory was given for the same group, experimental group, in order to know their intelligences. The 7 types of intelligence were identified, and to assign them in small groups based on their shared interests. And of course, because there were kids, consent letter for their parents were given, and then the reading materials were adapted in a way that fits to the level of the students, which is about fitting their multiple intelligence and their readiness, reading capabilities. Then training was given for the teacher, adequate training was given, and then intervention was taken. So what was the intervention look like? The intervention, like I said, there was a small group reading instruction, so that there were 7 groups. And the first group, for example, the verbal group, there was a passage about weather report, and the verbal group, they read the passage, they read, and then retold or retelling stories kind of thing was their activities. And the logical, the mathematical group, they do word search, readers. For the visual and spatial group, they talked about the picture, they drew the pictures that show different weather conditions. And the kinesthetic, they acted out different weather conditions. The interpersonal, they loved choral reading as partner reading, as the reading was also different. And they also actually role play or dramatize different situations. And the intrapersonal, they are self-smart they read dependently, and they put themselves in different weather conditions. They reflect and read in that way. And finally, the musical group, they sang songs which was presented actually in a kind of which was presented using laptop, using technology, laptop. They sang songs which is related to the passage itself, and did different reading activities that they loved it. So this was actually about the intervention. And on the way, the students as well as the teacher wrote reflections about the lessons each day, and I collected and actually made the next lessons a better fit for them. And the post questionnaire and post tests were given after the intervention, post questionnaire only for experimental group to compare their attitude before and after the intervention, and post test for both groups, control and experimental groups. And finally, makeup class was given for only control group students to respond to ethical questions. So as you can see, the intervention looked like this. These are sample pictures from the students. Some students were engaged in the musical group, they listened, and the kinesthetic groups, the interpersonal, they acted out, they dramatized the situation. They had actually games, they played games, bingo games, they worked collaboratively with their teachers, independently, and so on. And then partner readings, it's possible to have, they practice partner readings, and after the process, the product actually, like I said, because they were given different opportunities. For example, some of the opportunities were for the visual students, they were given chances to reflect what they have understood using the picture like this. And when it comes to the findings, what was the findings? Like I said, descriptive statistics, as you can see, the reading fluency indicates that the experimental group, the mean of the experimental group, 32.22, and the control group, 26.73, something like that, indicates that there was a difference, a mean difference. And in order to make sure that this difference was statistically significant, ANCOVA was computed, and 71.728 kind of thing, the F value indicated that, and the P value less than 0.01 even indicated that there was a statistically significant difference between experimental and control group students scores, and this could be because of the intervention. And the same is true for the reading comprehension. The experimental 10.72, the control 7.92, which for 2, something like that, indicates that there was a difference, and 37.669, the F value, indicates that the difference was really significant at level less than 0.5. And even the partial eta square, as you can see, both 42.8% for reading fluency and 28% for reading comprehension indicated that the effect size was large. There was actually, it has also practical relevance. And this study also coincides with studies like Gaisel 2015 and Gilbert 2011. Just these both researchers got positive results on the effects of the eye on students' reading performance, whereas it contradicts with Cummings 2011 study, a comparative study, which indicates that there was no significant difference between students in the experimental and control groups. And when it comes to the third research question, which is about attitude of students towards reading, before the intervention, as you can see, the mean of the students were 30 points, something like that. And after the intervention, they scored 53. The paired sample.
Thamar, sorry for interruption. Could you please pinpoint the conclusion? So we need to see the concluding remarks.
Okay. And so it indicates that there was a difference, and the t-value 26 points, something like that, indicates that the difference was really significant. This also coincides with students' reflections. They wrote that they loved reading, they were interested, and they developed positive attitude towards reading and towards learning English in general. So that it's possible to conclude that even the tiniest bit of differentiation can make a change on students' reading and attitude towards reading. So my recommendation is that just like a mother tip toys, in order not to disturb her kids, if you want to make a change on our students, first we need to know our students. Who are they as a student? And then it's better if you know our students, and in order to know, we need to have extensive kind of training should be given for teachers, which might, and it's possible to begin with little by little, low preparation differentiated instruction to high preparation strategies, so that we can revisit materials in a way that responds to the diversity of needs. And I can say finally that as DI is relatively innovative teaching pedagogics, it can be further studied using in different macro and micro language skills. I can say this one. Thank you very much for your attention. Okay.
Thank you, Zoelia Thamar, for your wonderful presentation. Now I invite P. Vijaya, Assistant Professor, Center for Advanced Studies in Linguistics, Annamalai University, Tamil Nadu. Her paper is on contribution of error analysis to second language teaching and learning. Are you there, Ms. Vijaya?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Good evening. Good evening to all. My topic is contribution of the second language. So, those who are the contributed based on the second language teaching and learning. So, I am explaining mainly error analysis. Those who are contributed for the error analysis.
You don't have a presentation?
No, sir. Now I already sent it, but now I don't. Here power cut. I am using the mobile.
Okay.
That is in laptop.
Okay.
Now I present only, sir. I can present only.
He was expecting she will be absent. He was absent there many times. She is the only one who doesn't
Yes, sir.
know mobile.
Okay. Carry on.
Okay, sir. My objective, the aim and objective of this paper, find out the classification of errors made by some scholars based on the various causes, to differentiate the errors committed by the learners, to distinguish the different opinions of the scholars. Based on that, I am going to explain about the scholars. Some of the reasons. Errors are important source of information to decide the learner's strategy in learning and are found in the learner's out. The teachers come to know the learners struggle to learn the second language while learning it for communicative purposes. A look at the various kinds of errors which our second language learner made will guide the teacher not only to identify the problematic error of second language learners, but also to spot out areas for which remedial courses and materials are needed. So the error analysis not only find out as the classify the errors second language learners output, it also tries to interpret the learning strategies for the learners. Error analysis also helps in the selection of teaching. For example, then we can collect the errors based on the stages, collection of errors, classification of errors, description of errors, sources of errors. Then finally we can give the remedial measures. Then we can go we know what are the collection of errors, identification of errors means what, classification of errors means what, description of errors means what. Then we can go the sources of errors. Mainly I am focusing the sources of errors. Some of the scholars, why they are making the differentiate. For example, as there are many descriptions for the different kinds of errors, it is inevitable to move further and ask for the sources of errors. It has been indicated in the first part of the study that errors were assumed as being the only result of interference of the first language. Habits to the learning of second language. However, with the field of error analysis, it has been understood that the nature of errors implicates the existence of the other reasons for the error analysis. Then the sources of errors can be classified the following various researchers. Richards, 1971, cites 4 major types of causes: overgeneralization, ignorance of rule restrictions, incomplete applications of the rules, false concepts, hypothesis. This is the Richards point of view. According to Selinger, observation and assumption carries a latent psychological structure in the brain of the learner, which is activated when he attempts to learn a second language. There arises the problem of fossilization in the terms of the learner's native language, interlanguage, and target language. Selinger suggests the 5 processes: transfer errors, analogical errors, teaching-induced errors, strategies of second language learning, strategies of second language communication. This is the Selinger's observation. Then Pitcorder says the 3: transfer errors, analogical errors, and the teaching-induced errors. Then again the Richards, 1974, he is identified the 6 causes: interference, overgeneralization, performance errors, markers of the transitional competence, strategies of communication and assimilation, then teacher-induced errors. Then Richards and Sampson, again he find out the 1974, he has given the 7 factors. First one is language transfer. Second is intralingual transfer. Third is social linguistic situation, modality, age, successions of the approximative systems, and the universal hierarchy. Then Sugman and Steban, 1974, is find out at that 3: incomplete acquisition of the target grammar, existence of the learning teaching situation, for interlingual concepts, communication strategies. Then finally, Natarajan Pillai has given a classification of the various causal factors. There are 8: overgeneralization, overextension of target language, interlanguage differences, mother tongue differences, and filter language interference, simplification of errors, and induced errors, and deficient learning. Then though researchers have been undertaken various aspects of teaching and learning language, certain factors affecting the process of teaching and learning has not been fully light to its value and significance. Error analysis is more important in the field of language learning because it is ultimate benefits the learners. The error analysis has been beneficial in many ways in the domain of language teaching. This study has been pivoted to introduce what error analysis is and what sort relationship it is with language teaching and learning, what contribution it provides for the language teaching and learning studies. The concluding remarks of this attempt regarding error analysis and revisited error analysis identifies the strategies that language learners use. It looks for the answer of the questions: why do learners make errors? It determines the common difficulties in learning and helps teachers to devote the teachers. This way, I have find out the contributions of the second language teaching, those who are contributed for the error analysis. This is my point. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijaya.
Thank you.
This was Vijaya's presentation on the title, Contribution of Error Analysis in Second Language Teaching and Learning. Now we have the last paper in today's session is by Ms. Smita John, Assistant Professor, Government College, Department of English, Government Arts and Science College, Palakkad, Trithala Palakkad. Her paper is titled The Language Teaching Refashioning the Role of the English Teacher. Are you there, Miss Smita?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Yeah, carry on.
Okay. Good evening, respected Chairperson, Professor Shanavas, and other dignitaries around the globe. I am blessed to be a part of the two-day international virtual conference on language teaching and learning conducted by the two prestigious universities in the world academic scenario.
You are
My,
in it, right? Come to the center.
my topic. So can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, you are
Only part of you
yeah,
is.
a part of you is view. Only one part of you. Okay, come. Okay. You don't have a PPT?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm sharing
Yes,
it.
please. Carry on.
Okay. So
Okay.
is it visible?
Yeah.
Can you? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So, with profound humility and genuine inclination, I would introduce my topic of presentation, language teaching, refashioning the role of the English teacher. What is language? We're all familiar with what language is. Language is a peculiar, unique phenomenon that man uses to communicate with each other, and signs and symbols are used to communicate ideas. It is a life experiences, information, and feelings that are being communicated, and we ought to be familiar with the concept of the four skills. And when we ought to know a language, we need to be acquainted with the four skills of the language. So language teaching is also language teaching also makes it very significant that these four skills are being transacted properly in a language classroom. Then, when coming to the determinants of language competence, competence is a native speaker's innate knowledge of the language that enables him to use it. And we know there's something that we can call a technical term like a critical age, where a learner can very easily imbibe a language and learn the different grammatical concepts of the language, and it is inbuilt in him in such a manner that he can communicate easily with the people around him. There's something called the language acquisition device, where in childhood, a child can easily learn a language than an adult. And there's something, as we know, called the natural learning environment that makes learning language or language learning a very easy process. But whereas when one grows up and already has learned another language, it's a bit difficult for him to learn the different grammatical aspects, the linguistic aspects, the pronunciation. Where we know there is something called the mother tongue interference, which always makes a difference in the language learning capacity of the learner. So language and teaching theories, there are so many theories that a teacher has always gone through during his university days or after for teacher training and all that. But the most significant thing is that we have to adapt ourselves to suit the situation. Now, what I felt like when I was appointed as an assistant professor at Government Arts and Science College, Trithala, a college in the outskirts of Palakkad district in Kerala, what I felt was even at the graduation level, the students were not competent enough with the four skills of language. And most of them, there were so many dropouts every year. And there were issues that I had to face. They were not confident enough to talk in English. And most of them were not, they had lack of interest in coming to college. And they just enjoyed the life outside the classroom, their campus life. So I just thought about what can be done. And what made a difference was that involving all of them in everyday classroom activities. A student-centered activity was planned for every day. So a teacher's basic thing is that a teacher should always plan out what he or she has to do the next day, as all of us know. And what is the role of the teacher in the present day scenario? You know, now these days we are facing a lot of challenges. Teachers are facing a lot of challenges, and we have equipped ourselves, adapted ourselves to suit the pandemic situation, and we are using ICT and other technology based, moved on to platforms where we are using ICT for transaction, and we are successfully doing that, especially in Kerala, right from the primary school through the high school and at secondary and at graduate and postgraduate level. And for higher education sector, there this is done very efficiently. And the competency of the teacher is a very significant factor, because whenever you give significance for the learner, the teacher has to be very sure about the objectives, what he or she has to do. So the textbooks and the grammatical structures are all graded to enhance the language learning process, and a natural learning atmosphere has to be provided by the teacher. And the four skills, as I mentioned earlier, has to be given significance at all stages. Now, there are so many issues that a teacher faces. Like the issue that I mentioned when I went to one of the colleges in the outskirts of a very ordinary village. It's a very ordinary village area. And there what I found was that the speaking skills are often neglected in the curriculum itself. And for the evaluation also, regarding evaluation techniques, there are few evaluation tools to see if a student has acquired the particular speaking skills. So listening and speaking are two skills that are being neglected. One problem, one issue behind that is because even at school level, children get very little exposure. The natural environment to learn a language is not that sufficient for him. He does not get the exposure. The student gets very little exposure and to the language in a natural environment. And the assessment methods are sometimes outdated, although we have brought about some changes in that, including Viva as a part of our studies, and we have got the continuous evaluation and all that. But still, I think changes have to be incorporated in order to solve the problem of lack of interest on the part of the learner. Because the learner is always worried about mugging up things, learning things, and presenting it for the examination in order to get marks. So that is not the intention or the objective that we have behind education, especially for language learning. So there's difficulty in creating a natural learning environment, but still we have to make sure that we will be able to do that. And there are some factors that have to be considered in teaching English as a second language, and more than second language, it is now used as a first language here in our state. And so English as a foreign language, when it came here, we were reluctant to accept that. But we know the significance of English, and that will not be even covered in an hour. I cannot talk about the topic in a very short time. I'm not going to that, since we are all aware about that. So let me talk about the competency of the teacher and the age of the learner, the attitude of the learner, the aptitude of the learner, and what are the effective strategies to be employed when we try to communicate in a particular language, especially English, in a situation in schools and colleges in Kerala. So all these matters, the student should feel the need to learn it. The attitude of the learner is very significant. So once they realize that it is very important for my career or for my higher studies, they will surely come to the point of finding time for all this. So there is a critical age for language learning, as I told. Then in transacting the different genres of literature at graduate level, we can introduce different techniques for poetry, for essays, for drama, for novels and short story. Just going through the text or reading it or just giving essays or the traditional methods of teaching are all outdated. We can just involve them, bring them, make comparisons with other poems, other recitations, make recitations. Then there can be workshops for writing, giving them enough space for their creativity. Then drama presentations can be made, novels can be discussed by bringing in characters, picturizing the characters and all that. So naturally, the children who left out from classes or who were not interested came back to the classrooms. They were interested with their presentations. They always came forward with novel ideas for presentations, and all their skills and creativity were given importance. So that is one thing. So we can involve them by giving them progressive modern techniques. They can be employed at graduate level for language learning. The individuality and the creativity of the learner should be taken into account when we are doing all this. So learning by doing is the most important thing that should be kept in mind. I'm sorry. Then create a natural learning environment. 4 skills of language should be given significance. Everything should be activity-based, demonstrative, democratic approach should always be there. We should ensure the participation of each and every student. They are mentally sorry, sir, 1 minute, please. Everything and sharing of resources, all that. So the colleges can become centers of excellence where they can support other institutions in the surroundings. So there are strategies of English language teaching, which I have shown here, ranging from group discussion, quiz, exhibition, mime, and dramatic presentation to radio and television presentations and magazines. You can find how we conducted a literary festival at our college and how the students participated there. Macbeth was being enacted there as a drama. Then you can find how higher secondary students from different schools visited there to see the exhibition. There was the quiz competition and the different charts and presentations made by students. Actually, they made it a very lively event. So the day-to-day activities in class itself is a mod of this, and this was actually a festival conducted for 2 days. It was really a very thrilling experience where the students enjoyed and involved themselves in that, and you can find the different things they have done. Okay, so anyway, I would like to thank all of you for your kind listening. I would like to conclude my presentation with immense gratitude to all of you and my appreciation to the organizers. I'm signing off. Thank you all so much. I conclude, true education must correspond to the surrounding circumstances, or it is not a healthy growth, as Gandhiji said. So let us all be transformed, or let us all bring out the change in us that we can suit the age or be adapted to the age. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Smita John. We have the 4 presentation, and 4 papers are use of folk tales, 1, effects of differentiated instruction, the second one, contribution and analysis, third one, and refreshment of role of a teacher, the 4th one. Now the paper is open for discussion. We have only 5 to 8 minutes because the last session of the day. Anybody have any questions?
Sir, if I may, can I think there are some questions put in the chat box. Can I answer?
Yes, go on, but be precise.
Okay.
Carry on.
So the first question is by Dr. Smita, which is the level at which folktales can be used for language teaching. So I have taken the target level of learners in the primary and upper primary level classes. I have taken classes 2 to class 8. So I've taken this age group as I believe this is the most crucial period in the process of language and culture and value education. And this is the conceptualization stage where the learners start having creative and critical mental faculties, and I believe if monitored and utilized properly can enhance their language, cultural, and moral education. So that is the first question. And second question, do I have time or should I answer? There is a second. There is a second question as well. Does the Christian, Catholic, and language of school interfere in any way with the morals and narrative discourse of the ancient popular folktale? So I believe not in any way they interfere, as the learners compare with their own folktales and they draw out their own understandings of the world at large. In fact, it helps them in the process of preserving their own culture as well as learning English language. That's all I have to say. Thank you all.
Thank you. Smita, the question was to you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am, for talking about. Hello.
Yeah, it's your bill. Go ahead.
Please, I can't hear you. Hello.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Mute your mic, sir.
Hello. The question, please. Is the question to me?
Yes, Smita, the question was to you. You are audible. You can go on and direct answer, please. Short answer.
Ma'am, please repeat the question, ma'am. Ma'am, please. Hello.
The person who asked the question, she needs a repetition of the question.
I can't hear you, sir. She needs. Pardon.
Rosie, can you repeat the question?
Oh, sir, I don't have a question. I was answering to Smita's question.
She's a presenter.
Dr. Smita, I do not have a question for you. I was answering to your question.
Yeah,
Okay.
that is what I felt. So I was a bit confused. I thought I missed a question that you asked. I asked a question about folk tales. No, at what level? She was answering that, sir.
Yes.
So, okay.
Smita, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for that.
Your mic is on. We can conclude.
I hope there is no more questions, and the time is going to be late. I congratulate on all for those who presented the paper and those who are attending this conference. It was a wonderful day. Good papers were present, and it was very good sessions. Good and valuable questions were asked, and good. Anyway, thank you one and all for this attending this session. Now it is over to Amin for the conclusion.
Thank you very much for all the wonderful presenters, audience, especially those who kept with us until the last moment, which means that today we are learning a lot of skills and also getting backgrounds from various topics in language teaching and learning. I would like to invite you also for tomorrow's session. It's going to be a very wonderful day in which we will start directly with 3 plenary sessions, in which one presenter will be from US speaking, America, and then another speaker will be from Malaysia, and the third will be from India. They are all experts in the field of language teaching and learning. And then we will have 5 technical sessions in which the topics will enrich our knowledge. And by now, I would like to say thank you very much and goodbye. See you tomorrow.
Goodbye. Okay, bye. So 54 people were there till the last.